leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves, or lose our ventures. Then with your will, go on. We'll along ourselves, and meet them at Fideline. The deep of night is crept upon our talk, and nature must obey necessity, which we will niggard with a little rest. There is no more to say? No more. Good night. Early tomorrow we will rise and head to Lucy.
So here is the road that I always used to walk up next to the golf course, and we used to come up at this spot here with my mom, and she used to make me put an old black raincoat over me so that golfers would think it was a dog, and go out and get golf balls off the golf course and then sell them back to the golfers. It's a single track road. We used to come up here in the school bus, going to the grammar school I went to, and at one time there was a young bus driver, and he used to get these two pretty girls from Croft, which is a famous little village where the girls were famous for being amenable, shall we say. And he used to come down here, coming the other way, and he'd come over this bridge at about 50 miles an hour, and the whole bus would take off, and he was doing it to impress the girls, of course. But if there'd been somebody coming the way that I'm going now, it would have been a disaster of major proportions. And we used to come up here with our little trolley carts and go down, and we'd walk all the way up here. There's a lot more traffic now than there was then, of course. Including trucks like this, which were... I don't honestly think this truck should be allowed on this road. I really don't. There you go. This intersection, which is quite dangerous actually. People really whip along here. And then there's another little road down here that we used to use, and this used to be a gated road. There used to be gates along it. You'd have to get out of the car or get off your bike to open the gate, because there were no fences, and the cattle could roam freely, and that's why they had a gate, to keep the cattle in the one spot. This is where I rode my very first motorcycle, which was a VSA band, a very small capacity motorcycle, and we're coming up to the place where that was where the first gate was. There were two gates. There was one at the end, of course, and then there was one back where I told you, and then at the bottom of this dip, right where this hedge meets the road, there was one right there. Slowly in case there's somebody coming the other way. It's all hawthorn hedge there. You can see some of it is flowering, some of it's not even got its leaves on yet. And this little bridge here went over the railway line, which was actually active up until I was about 10, I guess, and then they parked along miles and miles of freight cars and cattle cars on it. We used to play in those when we were kids. and then they moved them all, took the rail up, and that was the end of that rail line. England used to be crisscrossed with railway lines, and then this guy called Dr. Beeching, back in the 60s, decided that all the freight should travel by road. And good Lord. And so it did. I'm letting this lady go by. I didn't want to go over that other side because it's full of mine holes, it looks like, full of mud. Now this turn here coming up was, I was coming the other direction on my motorcycle. I was riding it for the second time, and that fence wasn't there. There was just a ditch right here on the right. Well, I went straight into it on the motorcycle, but I wasn't hurt, and the motorcycle wasn't damaged, and I carried on like nothing happened. This road here that we're about to turn right onto didn't exist. We had to go a bit further down to get to this direction, which is headed back towards Cosby. And here's the site where these lights are. There was no this road wasn't here. You'd go a bit further up there, and there was a pub called the Bull's Head that we used to go to sometimes. It's gone now. Just like the pubs in Cosby, there used to be 3 main pubs in Cosby. Now there's 1. It's not a thing anymore in the UK. Going to the pub, it was before TV, and it was a social thing to go to the pub. And the hours that they were allowed to open were minimal. 10:30 to 2:30, and then 7:30 to 10:30 at night. And then they had to close, and of course at 10:20 they would call last orders, and everybody would load up with 2 pints of beer, and you had to drink them quick. So the consequences of that were that at 10:30 or 10:45, when they kicked everybody out, the streets were full of drunks. And not so much here, but in the town of Leicester, where we used to go, the consequences were there were lots of fights, because there were drunks everywhere. Not smart. And on Sundays, the hours, licensing hours they used to call them, when you could sell alcohol in a bar, were even more stringent. It was 11 till 1:30, and then 8 o'clock at night until 10 o'clock at night. And you'd see guys hanging around in the village where the 3 pubs were in Cosby, waiting for the pubs to open. They had nothing better to do on a weekend, on a Saturday or a Sunday, than wait for the pub to open. And now we're going to come back towards my mum's house, on the left of the fields we used to play in when we were kids. And there's a public footpath which goes over to the left over there, and we used to go across there all the time, and through the what we call the allotments, which is if you didn't have much of a garden by your house, you could apply for one of these allotments, which is a piece of land divided up into allotments, and you could grow vegetables, or you could grow whatever you wanted, but most people grew vegetables there because they couldn't grow vegetables in their own garden, and they couldn't, they were trying to save money. Dead ahead is the chip shop, which is the best supposedly in Leicestershire, and one of the best in the country, they say. And we are now going to go to the Co-op, which is a grocery store here in town, which is just opened in the one of the other 3 pubs. I'm sorry, the other two pubs, because there were only 3 in town, and I will now show you where the one dead ahead there, the Bull's Head, is the only remaining one. Over here on the left, the black and white building was called the Blacksmith's Arms. It is now a Indian restaurant. Chemist there. The first girl that I ever hung out with or actually fell in love with lived on the left here in these little cottages, and the place here on the right, the co-op, is where the third one used to be, the third pub, and that was called the New Inn.